Why is David Gower not doing commentary anymore? So could you explain to me and the viewers?
Avanish, it is very, very straightforward. Sky let me go some years ago now, 6 years ago now. Sky said, that's enough, thank you very much.
Were you at the Ravi Shastri suite? Because everyone seems to be popping in there recently.
I did have a quick look for the Ravi Shastri suite at one stage, but he was very busy talking about the game for Sky. If someone of Virat's status publicly states how important Test cricket is, that's a brilliant piece of PR. I mean, that's free PR for the game of Test cricket and absolutely invaluable. First of all, I'm trying very hard not to use the word, to be honest, because I know that Baz, i.e. Brendan, doesn't really like it. It was a very nifty term coined in the press box. The last over of the day, Crawley hit on the finger, calling for the physio, and it was designated as very obvious time wasting because they didn't want to face 2 overs, they were very happy to face 1 over. But then if you look back over that same game at Lord's, if you're worried about time wasting, then look at yourself as well, because if Shubman Gill wants a massage on the field for 7 minutes, ICC have done nothing for several years about anything. The balls are the responsibility of the host nation. So, of course, wherever you are in the world, the host nation chooses what sort of ball you're going to use. Conversations have changed from finding windows for white ball cricket to finding windows for Test cricket.
Right, given the fact that India, England are playing an absolutely brilliant series, riveting to say the least, we decided to get in touch with one of our old friends. Not literally, but going back 4 years ago, we spoke about all things in that incredible series. But right here, right now, we're going to be talking to him again. I'm talking about the OG, I'm talking about the Lord, I'm talking about a man who has 200 against India in Test cricket, and of course a whole bunch of runs. I'm talking about the former England captain, David Gower. David, thank you so much for your time. It's good to see you. All well?
It's been a little while, but yeah, all is very good. As you say, we got some very, very high quality, interesting cricket to watch, which we've had 3 great Test matches so far, 2 more to come, of course, which will decide the series. And it's been fantastic watching, actually. I was at Lord's for all 5 days in various capacities and loved every moment.
I can imagine. I mean, were you at the Ravi Shastri suite? Because everyone seems to be popping in there recently.
Don't tell Ravi, but no, I wasn't. I was aware of the Ravi Shastri suite, but I had duties elsewhere. Very straightforward. I was doing a bit of stuff for the MCC in their boxes. I had friends on days 4 and 5 who I was with. I did have a quick look for the Ravi Shastri suite at one stage, but I think you need a gold-plated. Actually, no, I did have an invitation, but I can only apologise to the great man that I wasn't able to get in there. But he was very busy talking about the game for Sky.
He was. Speaking of Sky, I mean, we miss you in commentary. Every listener right now, watcher right now would be wondering, why is David Gower not doing commentary anymore? So could you explain to me and the viewers?
Avanish, it is very, very straightforward. Sky let me go some years ago now, 6 years ago now. Sky said, that's enough, thank you very much. I mean, I had 20 very, very good years with them. Again, loved every minute. Honest truth, I'd love to still be working for them or anyone. So all the commentary I've actually done over the last 4 or 5 years, 5, 6 years, has been elsewhere, overseas. Sometimes it ends up on Sky when they buy the rights to overseas series. Sometimes it ends up on their rival TNT when they buy the rights to overseas series. But I'm afraid when I'm at home, at Lord's, the Oval, all the other Test grounds, my only options are what I call professional, being nice to people in the boxes, watching the game, obviously with avid interest, but not actually broadcasting. And that, I'm afraid, is the way it is. As I say, my choice, I'd love to be doing it still.
Absolutely. The only time I get to hear you on commentary nowadays is, like you said, on TNT or the good old PlayStation 5, where actually Cricket 24 has your voice. So that does resonate with gamers around. Okay, forget fooling about. How have you perceived the series? Because it was 1-1 and now it's become 2-1 England, and we're recording this at a time, 5 days before Manchester. But there's some breaking news in terms of Shoaib Bashir's replacement. Liam Dawson comes back into it, so we'll get into the nitty-gritties. But just from the offset, David, how do you kind of put this series together for people who've not watched it? What's your summation?
Well, first of all, we've seen a lot of high quality stuff. And what makes cricket interesting is all the mistakes that come with it. So, some of the batting, let's face it, the first two test matches dominated by the batting of India's new captain, Shubman Gill, who batted with great calm, great skill. He was imperious. England couldn't get him out in those first two games. They found a way at Lords in the third test, which was good news for England, bad news for India. We've had Stokes. Actually, it's quite interesting because both captains have had a really, really important role to play for their respective teams. Shubman Gill's batting in those first two test matches was outstanding. Stokes' performance, not quite single-handed, but a deserved man of the match performance at Lords. Runs in both innings, no 50s, but vital runs at the time. Long spells with the ball. Actually, it was just fantastic to see from Ben because, of course, with all the injuries he's had in recent years, to see him carry on bowling at good pace too, nudging 90 miles an hour and unstinting with his efforts, leading from the front. That was an extraordinary thing to watch, actually, for all the English supporters at Lords and, of course, for the Indian supporters too. If you can remain neutral and just admire the performances of people on both teams, that's always a great talent. There have been mistakes. There were errors in England's batting in the second innings at Lords. Some awful shots played. Obviously, there's a sort of new trend to play shots that weren't invented in my time, 30, 40 years ago now. And some of it is incredibly exciting, I have to say that. So, but when people get out playing shots that weren't invented all that time ago, people get out misjudging things like the line, the length, the whole thing, then of course it puts pressure on other people in that same batting order. But let's face it, these are two very good sides. The competition is intense. The rivalry is intense. And even though it's England 2-1 at the moment, and in a sense they're lucky to be there because if you go back to the first test at Headingley, India had control of that for 4 days, up until that fifth and final day in the chase there. It looked like India, who lost the chance actually by losing wickets in both innings there at the tail. The tail disintegrated twice. Lost the chance to bat England completely out of the game. Let them back in. An extraordinary chase, 1-0 to England. Great comeback at Birmingham by India to make it 1-1. 2-1 now after Lords. Old Trafford is next, which can be a very good pitch, very flat pitch. Maybe actually it'll give England, or both teams actually, something they quite like, which is a bit more pace and bounce up there, because these three pitches we've seen so far have lacked that. And of course, the oval at the end of the series as well, that can also have pace and bounce. So there is a lot to play for and a lot of good stuff coming up, which I'm going to be very happy to watch.
Yeah, well summed up. I mean, it makes you think about the good, bad, and ugly this series has seen. And I don't want to meander into the sledges and spats on field, but we'll get there in due course. But the last time we had a chat, David, was in the 2021 series. And that point in time, Bazball wasn't born. But right now, it's kind of come to fruition. We're seeing it fully in flesh. What's your take on it? And do you think it's a coping mechanism with Ben Stokes and Baz McCullum, or do you think there's much more to it?
It's evolved. First of all, I'm trying very hard not to use the word, to be honest, because I know that Baz, i.e. Brendan, doesn't really like it. It was a very nifty term coined in the press box to explain positive cricket, very, very positive cricket that England were trying to play and at times succeeding with. Let's face it, the run rates under McCullum and Stokes went up dramatically. And on good pitches, it made for big runs in quick time. I mean, there were some fantastic chases, the likes of, for instance, Johnny Bairstow against New Zealand. I mean, the whole team bought into this very, very positive approach in Pakistan a couple of years ago. In fact, even only last year as well. Runs made at a pace and in huge quantities. Harry Brook, a triple hundred. And it gave them the chance to play this ultra positive game, which on a good day made sure they had plenty of time to bowl people out, even on relatively flat pitches, and win matches. So the previous series in Pakistan was a 3-0 result in England's favour. That's never happened there before. The difference to me is this. There have been times, and for instance, the Ashes in England 2 years ago, where at Lords especially, the ultra-positive approach cost them wickets in their first innings, cost them that game. And the ultimate view is it cost them that game by being too positive, too careless, too reckless. And everything that people like me from my generation wanted to see was the excitement of this very positive form of cricket and the batting especially, but with some judgment, some good common sense that when you have to dig in, when the opposition actually are, heaven forfend, bowling well, which they're allowed to do, if there's pressure on from a bowling attack, then there are times you have to dig in and battle through. And we've seen signs of that. Every now and again, we've seen this form of cricket get smarter. If it gets really, really, really smart and can adapt to different conditions regularly, then it'll be even stronger. And Lord's actually, I thought, was quite a good demonstration because the pace of the game was very, very different to a lot of stuff we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years. Batsmen were forced to take their time, forced to be judgmental, to use good judgment with their stroke making. And there wasn't a lot of, outright forceful batting at Lord's because of conditions and because of the bowling, the combination of the two. So in the end, you've got to say, I'd kind of sum up again, go back to Lord's. The England second innings could have been better. There were various things going on there that count as unforced errors. If you're a tennis player, you'd be saying those were unforced errors. And in the end, yes, a great win, fantastic effort in the field. But a lot of that game was both teams actually adapting conditions, both teams saying, okay, we can't score entirely freely. And that makes sense. That does make sense. And that actually, rather than the run fests we've seen when England have been entirely dominant, that makes for rather more absorbing cricket, I think.
Yeah, it's food for thought that when you actually look back at how the series has unfolded. Before we get player specific, just want to have your 2 cents in terms of how you look at England-India as a rivalry right now. Surely it's come a long way from the time that you've played to right now. You've seen some of the interesting on-field spats as well. What do you make of it? Do you think that kind of adds excitement to the game right now? It's almost a injection of, this is how modern cricket is, and it's tempers flaring, and people like that. Do you like it?
Well, I'll be careful how I phrase this. I like the signs that the competition is 100%. I like the signs that people care on both teams about the outcome of a game of cricket and that there is passion there involved in their performance in these matches. When it crosses a line, I think this is one very important thing that I think teams have to be very aware that they are not being, should we say, slightly disingenuous, because the flare point, which was unnecessary to be honest, was the last over of the day. Crawley hit on the finger, calling for the physio, and it was designated as very obvious time wasting because they didn't want to face 2 overs. They were very happy to face 1 over. So obviously we saw a lot of finger pointing. We saw some harsh words spoken. I didn't get the lip reader in to exactly decipher exactly what was said. But then if you look back over that same game at Lord's, if you're worried about time wasting, then look at yourself as well, because 2 things. One is everyone tends to do that anyway. And following night, same thing happened. It just happened to be India batting. If Shubman Gill wants a massage on the field for 7 minutes, which also happened before the finger wagging and the Crawley finger injury. If someone wants a massage on the field because he's got a bit of a dodgy back, and that takes 7 minutes, okay, it might be excused as a medical timeout, but there are so many things that waste time. So you can say, there are a million things you can point to. Umpires changing balls funerally. Every time there's drinks, it's a saunter on and off. I was at a dinner as I speak the night before, where one of the main complaints about the modern game is all this apparent wasting of time, and the fact that this so-called minimum overs thing is just completely ignored. There are always, even the extra half hour, there are always overs missing, apart from the odd, very, very exceptional day. So it gets highlighted when someone has a sort of finger injury with 1 minute to go and calls the physio on. It's a bit what I'd call unedifying. It's a bit ugly to see the scenes there. Because, as I say, people understand, people in the game. I thought KL Rahul actually summed it up. He sort of grinned gently and said, look, it happens all the time. Come on, don't get excited about it. It happens all the time. It will always happen. And the only people who can stop it are umpires. But if you can imagine an umpire saying to a player, no, you can't have treatment, and then half an hour later he goes to hospital and there's a broken finger. They cannot take that risk. So it is something, I'm afraid, that's not new either. It's something we live with. And my view about the whole thing is that if you have the 5 days we had of this Lord's Test match, where you've got the ebbs and flows, crucial wickets being taken at crucial times, crucial runs being added at crucial times, and you're not sure who's going to win until literally the last 10, 15 minutes of a 5-day game. I think that's high quality competition and high quality entertainment. I look back on those 5 days we've just watched at Lord's as being something very, very special. And I wouldn't be minded at all to even start whinging about the odd over missing because of an apparent bit of time wasting. So yeah, take the positives and grow up and accept the negatives.
Yeah, it's evident that these two teams have characters who wear their hearts in their sleeves. And in many ways, it makes you think about how hostile it can get and how hot under the collar it can get. And some fascinating subplots which is unraveled. One of the points that you mentioned there is about, of course, the timekeeping. And then the players, of course, just buying time, so on and so forth. We've seen various instances of it. And I think your old mates in Nas and Ather brought this up in Sky Sports, where other players being too precious, David. I mean, in your opinion, do you think the game has drastically changed from the times that obviously you played in, but right now as well? And do you think the umpires should be much more shrewder and almost be like principals out there to school children?
Well, yeah, I mean, the last point, actually, umpires and players. I mean, one of the important things about the game as a whole is the relationship between umpires and players. And always, 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 the respect has to be mutual between the two. We have very good umpires around the world. If you look at their stats around the world, lots of obviously judgment on DRS. There are mistakes made, but they're not big mistakes. So often you'll see an umpire's call or a ball missing a stump by a millimetre, and an LBW site might be overturned one way or the other. But by and large, these guys are very, very good. The influence they can have on players, though, is realistically minimal. Tell Ben Stokes or Shubman Gill, for that matter, if you have a sort of shot clock on the captains to get the over started within 45 seconds of the previous over finishing, there will be all sorts of ructions potentially. I mean, it might be one of the things you can do, but what penalties would you impose? Would you be starting to? It's ridiculous if you start to say things like, "Well, let's add or subtract runs accordingly," because that completely screws up the game. I don't know what others and Nas were saying on TV because I was watching live from the stadium itself. And in terms of players being precious, I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, as I said, I like competition. I mean, you look back over the years in my time, there were always moments where tempers got a bit heated, and if you were part of that, if you were very much fundamentally involved in that, you stared someone in the eye, looked them in the eye, and you took on the challenge. And you did it in whichever way suited your character. Some people get verbal, some people. I mean, actually, to use Mike Atherton as a very good example, and that famous stuff with Mike against Atherton-Donald at Trent Bridge all those years ago, where tempers flared because Atherton-Donald wasn't giving a cat, wasn't given a dismissal that was palpably out. All Michael did was he looked straight back in the eye, didn't say a word. It was brilliant TV. I mean, it was vital, brilliant TV at the time. And electric up at Trent Bridge on that particular game. And those sort of confrontations are brilliant to watch. Again, it shows the passion, it shows the skill, and facing fast bowling involves all sorts of skills. So I wouldn't want to see it all. I wouldn't want to see that passion diminished by overbearing umpiring. And one of the great skills of umpires is to understand when to let people compete and when they might just have overstepped a line. Be it verbally or physically, obviously, sending batsmen off over dramatically is something that people get fined for because we want standards in our game to be right, and we want competition to be 100%, and we want the way the game is also played to be 100%. Maybe sometimes those lines get blurred.
Another fascinating chat which has come up is the balls, and especially the Duke's balls, and how it's kind of not going through the gauge and the rings, so-called. And what is your whole verdict on it? Because did you even change balls that much in your playing day? And again, have the captains been too persistent with umpires being like, come on, give us a new ball?
Well, it has become something that's almost compulsory. The balls, I mean, they tell us, the manufacturers tell us that, the quality of the leather they're getting, they have to change suppliers. The quality of the leather isn't exactly what they wanted as it was in the good old days when the balls stayed together rather more better. I mean, they are handmade. So there's always going to be a little bit of variation ball by ball, which is one of those sort of arcane mysteries of the game. The head bowler, the lead bowler of every team is the one who picks half a dozen balls out of the box at the start of the test match. Says, we'll have number 1, number 2, number 3, and they pick their new balls. When they go out of shape or when they stop, actually, let's be fair, it's when they stop doing something. So if your ball stops swinging, or if you feel in your hand that it's gone a bit soft for whatever reason, the obvious recourse is to just have that word with the umpire. Umpires must be so bored with this because, I mean, the ritual is very straightforward. Bowler hands ball to umpire. Umpire puts it through the hoops, hands it back to bowler, says it's fine. 10 minutes later, bowler hands ball to umpire again, says, look, it's gone out of shape. Umpire puts it through the hoops again. It's fine, gives it back to bowler. Third attempt, give or take, there's just a slight discrepancy, whether someone's trodden on it or God knows what else. Yeah, and eventually when the ball doesn't go through the hoop, then you go through this very slow ritual of getting a box of balls out, trying to find one that is officially the same sort of age and has had the same sort of wear, but that's an impossibility as well. And the hope is from each and every bowling side, be it England, India, or any other test playing nation, the hope is they get a ball in their hands that might just do a bit more. And then you get the disappointment every now and again, the new ball or the replacement ball rather doesn't do anything. So he goes through the whole ritual again saying, sorry, this isn't good enough. Can he put it through the hoops? I mean, it's laughable in many, many ways. It's dull because it takes out time from the game. But it is part of the playing conditions. It's part of the laws of the game. If the ball is out of shape, then you're entitled to replace it. It's just very frustrating that it happens so very often. And again, it's one of those things that just helps contribute to losing so much time.
So just to my understanding, where does the buck stop with regards to the Duke's balls? Does it come down to the company themselves or the ECB because they're hosting the test, or is it the ICC who, of course, are guardians of the game?
Well, ICC have done nothing for several years about anything. I wouldn't expect ICC to adjudicate on balls. The balls are the responsibility of the host nation. So, of course, wherever you are in the world, the host nation chooses what sort of ball you're going to use, be it sort of Dukes or Kookaburra or SG, whatever it might be, wherever you are. And that's never going to change. I mean, that's fine. That's an absolute prerogative of the host nation. All the host nation can do, to be fair, is implore the manufacturers to try and make sure the balls are of the highest possible standard. I mean, Dukes are embarrassed. I mean, they're aware there's a problem. And they've cited, as I say, the reason, which is to do with the leather, as something of a mitigating factor. But kookaburras have changed over the last couple of years. They've changed the way they manufacture their balls a little bit to get more life out of them. And it's extraordinary, actually, as a sideline, when manufacturers and boards try and do something about the cricket ball, be it raising the seam by a millimetre or something, it's extraordinary how much of a difference it can make. I mean, English cricket, county cricket has tried doing that. And the last time they raised the seam a couple of millimetres, sides are getting bowled out for nothing. Because suddenly the bowlers had far more influence they could exert with the cricket ball. So again, you sort of remodel it. So it's an unfortunate side issue. And there's not much one can do unless the manufacturers actually find a way of making the perfect ball. And there is no such thing. There never has been such a thing as the perfect ball in cricket.
Compelling the way you look at it, the way anyone looks at it, because it's such an integral part of the game. It's the ball of the sport. Speaking of England next, because I just generally want to ask you about whether they kind of always look at the Ashes, David, as the next frontier, no matter who they're playing preceding that. And I ask you this because I know this year has been perceived as a litmus test for Bazball and company. Do you think the future of England and it's cricketers always is on the horizon, almost in a way that, okay, we're looking at the Ashes and that's the main focus, purely because they haven't won there in 15 years' time. They have a great chance to do so this time. How do you kind of see it unravel with Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum right now? I mean, they've given you enough sample size and evidence in the cricket that they've been playing. Many people are saying that they've not, of course, reached the dizzy heights of the WTC final yet. Can you make sense of it? That it's all great, it's optics, but there's no end product, if that's fair to say?
Well, there's something in there. I mean, first of all, actually, there's a lot of points raised in one question there, to be honest. I mean, first of all, I hate this thing where everyone just talks endlessly about the Ashes. You know, we need to prepare for the Ashes. Yes, of course, you know, a bit of long-term planning never goes amiss. But actually, I mean, and I've stressed it again elsewhere for this home summer in the UK, that we all know how strong India is as a team. And England-India is a massive series. So from my point of view, whatever's happening at the moment should have been, and I think actually largely is, a question of saying, how do we win this series? You know, who are our best players at this precise moment? And of course, Bazball, sorry, I'm not allowed to use that word, don't want to use that word. You know, Stokes and McCullum have been incredibly loyal to their batting lineup over the last 3-4 years. There have been more changes to the bowling lineup, largely because of fitness issues. So for me, it's very much a question of playing the series you're in. And for instance, you know, by the end of this month, first week of August, we all know how this England-India series has gone. And there'll be lots of notes made, and some reputations will be enhanced, others will be diminished. We'll see how many more players get a chance. Or you mentioned at the start, Liam Dawson is in for Bashir, which it's a great thing for Liam Dawson at this late stage of his career to finally get a Test match. He's played white ball cricket, but never red ball Test cricket. So that'll be fantastic for him. But all these things go into the hat. So when you finally finish this series against India, and as I say, it's vitally important just to focus on that, then you can take all the evidence you've gathered and make your plan for Australia. I mean, at the moment, yes, of course, around the country, around the UK, there are lots of people talking about the Ashes already. Lots of people, myself included, you know, made our plans to go down there come what may. And there are people saying, oh, we'll be in Melbourne, we'll be in Sydney. Will it still be going then? You know, we'll be in Perth, you know, it'll be the first test. And they want to, you know, everyone wants to believe in England that this could be the time that Ben Stokes gets a chance to get his hand on the Ashes. I mean, he should have, in many ways, if things had been cleverer, going back to that point, Ben Stokes would already be an Ashes winning captain. He will know, whatever he says to, or whatever he tries to do to dismiss it, that it'll be his last chance as an England captain, I would suspect, to win the Ashes. And to do it in Australia would be very, very special. And yes, there's so much chatter about it. I mean, people talking about the batters and bowlers of both teams. At the moment, it looks like Australia have more issues with the batting than they normally have. But looking at the way that bowling attack is still together, you know, the big four and a couple of very, very able replacements in the wings. You know, that Australian bowling attack looks incredibly strong too, still. Whereas England, okay, this last result at Lord's proves there's a lot of spirit in the team, and Stokes, of course, very vital as the all-rounder. Great to have Archer back. Mark Wood is almost back to fitness. So the possibility is that England will take with them to Australia a whole handful, or more than a handful, you know, a truckload of fast bowlers on the grounds that they'll need them because they want to rotate, and they'll want the special ones to be special at the right times to help them try and win a series. And so it's a contest in many, many ways about England's batters against great Australian bowlers coming up, England's bowlers staying fit if they can, to take advantage of the current vulnerabilities in the Australian batting lineup. And then you flip a coin and decide who's going to win. But it is a great opportunity. But coming back to the original point, you know, there is so much vital cricket to be played in this England-India series first, because 2-1 is you know, okay, it's a handy lead for Ben Stokes and his team. I wouldn't write off Shubman Gill and his team by any stretch of the imagination, because we've seen what they can do in the first 2 Test matches. You know, and the sort of general opinion was that 9 out of the first 10 days of the series belong to India. So there's so much to play for, which makes the next, whatever it is, 2 or 3 weeks compelling, I think.
Speaking about
Yeah.
India next, really briefly then, Shubman Gill, what has he given you in terms of just an observer of the game as India's new test captain? And of course, big shoes to fill from the main guy in Virat Kohli, who of course you so admirably loved whenever he played the
Mm.
game. So first in Shubman Gill, David, I mean, what's the impression that this boy has given you? Obviously, scoring runs for fun is one thing, but tactically, have you observed something from a captaincy lens?
Well, let's just deal with the runs first. I mean, the way he batted in those first 2 Test matches was sublime, and was the perfect way for a new captain to influence or stamp his authority on a team, leading from the front. Because leading from the front with runs under your belt as a batting captain, wickets under your belt maybe as a bowling or an all-rounder captain, all that stuff makes it easier to be decisive with your decision making and to influence the people around you. If you're not making runs as a batting captain, it just makes it a bit harder. You can separate the two. You have to separate the two. Those first 2 Test matches were an absolute triumph for him personally as a batsman. Lords, England found ways of getting him out, and that can be a marker for the next couple of Test matches for England. Tactically, I'll give him, I don't know how many marks out of 10. Let's say about 7. I don't think it's been perfect. But of course, one of the things I'll say, I mean, from my own experience, when one takes over captaincy, how old was I? I was 27 or so when I first was given the England captaincy as the appointed captain. And I look back on some of those, and I captained 3 or 4 times, 2 or 3 times before that. And I look back on some of those games thinking, if only I'd realised A, B, or C, only realised I should have done this, could have done that. And there's always, I mean, you're always learning each and every day, each and every game as a player, as a captain, you're always learning something about the way the game is played. So I wouldn't be particularly harsh about Shubman. And I would say, of course, that he could easily have been 2-0 up on the back of his personal performances, let alone the team performances. But that wasn't the case in the end. So I think, as I say, I think you learn each and every day. When you've got someone like Jasprit Bumrah in your team, obviously you rely on people like that a lot as a senior player and as a star player. I mean, he's the most outstanding bowler, as we all know. But then you look at the way things went at Birmingham, for instance, which was a crushing victory. I mean, that was a massive victory for India at Birmingham, at Edgbaston. And you had no Jasprit Bumrah, which I was worried about at the time because I felt, well, if they want to get back in the series, maybe they're going to have to play him, even if it was already 2 games out of 2 when he was only going to play 3, as was announced before the series. As it happens, the Indian bowling attack stood up. Akashdeep was brilliant, and between them, they found more things they could do with the cricket ball than England did in that match. Hence, a very, very deserved victory. Lots of runs and wickets taken. So, and that implies, of course, that the handling of those bowlers. When you win a match by 300 odd runs, 300 plus runs, you've done a lot right. Let's face it. Both as a batsman making runs and as a captain taking wickets or working out how to take wickets. So I would say that was very much a plus mark for Shubman. And of course, now the pressure is on because you've got to win 2 games to win the series. You've got to win the next 2 games to win the series. And at worst, try and win a game to square the series and see what happens after that. So he will come. I mean, let's face it, when that spat occurred at the end of play, the Crawley incident at the end of that day, Shubman was right in there, almost as a Kohli would have been, so eyeball to eyeball. That again sets an example. You're going to lead from the front. It's, whether or not you agree with the way that was done is another matter. But if you're going to be there right at the forefront as a leader, then you've got to show up at the right times. And I think he's doing all right. I mean, okay, simple answer. I think he's doing all right.
I love how you kind of say that after giving me an absolute spiel about it, but we appreciate that. And it makes you just think about captaincy a little bit in terms of how your playing career went. Because I think you played 117 tests for England, captained England 32 times. And even if you look at your averages as a batter, David, it wasn't real chalk and cheese. It was 43 playing 44. So do you think someone like Shubman Gill will probably become like a Virat Kohli in a sense that the captaincy will make him score more runs? We saw that with the 269 and then 161 being backed up, albeit it's flatter pitches in England this time around. Do you think he's a character, now that he's given the captaincy, will just take that into his stride and go places?
Well, time will tell. Inevitably, we can make predictions. I'd make a judgment, which is he looks to be a very composed batsman. Virat was an extraordinary player to watch, and you could see on Virat's face each and every time in the field, at the crease, all the way through Test matches, that fierce competitive spirit. Shubman has a more impassive demeanour. Doesn't mean he's not competitive at all. Well, certainly not. Obviously, you've got to be competitive to make those runs. So there's a different visage, different outward appearance that Shubman Gill presents to the world. But I think there have been good signs already. You mentioned my experiences. Well, I can tell you in the space of, say, 4 series, I had every combination, i.e. An Ashes series in 85, where I made a lot of runs and we won a series. An India series, 84, 85 before then, where I didn't make that many runs, but we won a series. West Indies series, 2 West Indies series where, obviously, it goes without saying, we lost by a distance in that era in the mid-80s, because they were probably the best side ever in Test cricket. We can debate that another time. But one series I was poor with the bat, one series averaging best part of 50. Didn't make any difference to the end result. So every combination is there. What is inevitable as a captain is that even on dark days, even when things are going against you, you have that thing in your head which says, look, if I don't try and set an example, how can I expect anyone to try and follow me? And you have that huge responsibility of trying to set the tone by your actions, by your words, by a combination of the two. And you always have to keep the face on which says, look, don't worry, I've got this, I'm in command, we're good. And the moment you lose that, the moment sort of despondency might ever set in, is probably the moment that you know that you should be doing maybe not doing that particular job. But it's a huge responsibility. There are various different ways of tackling the task of captaining an international side, and you've always got to be prepared to listen and learn each and every day. Because the great thing also is to learn from the experience, or use the experience that's around you, not cut yourself off from that.
Yeah, there's some good leaders in that dressing room still. Now, Gill's deputy, David, Rishabh Pant, so much of talk with him being potentially one of the best ever wicketkeepers in Test match cricket in terms of being the batter out there. Where do you rank him in the pantheon of great keepers that you've seen, observed? I mean, there's Andy Flower to Kumar Sankara to someone like Rishabh Pant. I mean, he's taking your breath away, I presume.
Well, Rishabh is unique. Even in the space of, we've seen him before, obviously, do some extraordinary things with the bat. He's obviously a decent keeper. But with the bat, what catches the eye of any observer when you're looking at Rishabh Pant is the way he bats and the most extraordinary things that he does when he's batting. Those one-handed drives for 6. As no one else in the world does that at the moment. And we've seen over the last 20 years, we've seen a trend where virtually every international side wants a keeper who can bat. So England ignores someone like Ben Foakes, who many supporters of Ben Foakes would say he is the best keeper in the world, the best man with the gloves in the world. And I would actually promote him as such. I'd say he's brilliant with the gloves. But we now have a guy called Jamie Smith. So we talk about Pant, but England have Jamie Smith, who comes in with England's in trouble, comes in at number 7, gets 160 and plays brilliantly, absolutely brilliantly. So actually, between the two of them, I'd say there's a wonderful sort of man-on-man match-up competition between Pant and Smith to see who gets the most runs. Obviously, the day job is taking the catches and the stumpings, and I think Jamie is coming on nicely because he hasn't done that much for keeping in first-class cricket, let alone Test cricket. But I think he's coming on very nicely. So, with 2 games to go, there could be some extraordinary batting feats from both men, and both men have a great chance to carry on influencing the series. It's a trend which has brought entertainment. The Gilchrist thing way back. Adam Gilchrist, of course, was the destroyer, was the man who made extraordinary hundreds at number 7 for Australia. Any team going to Australia or even playing Australia anywhere in the world might think they were through the order if they got 5 quickish wickets, and then a Gilchrist would come in and smack it all around the park for 150. And if Pant can do that, batting even higher up the order, obviously he has a vast capacity to change games in the space of an hour or two. Likewise, Jamie Smith, I say, he can come in and rescue things or build on an already successful platform. And I think, as I say, I think it's fantastic to have 2 such talented keeper batsmen playing in this one series. Brilliant competition.
Yeah, I didn't mention Gilchrist's name because I think he's my personal favorite, and we had him on the podcast prior. I think he admitted himself that Rishabh Pant's blown his kind of records out of the water. But look, he's been modest. But again, it's subjective to say the least. The final question with regards to Team India, I can't ignore him, is Jasprit Bumrah. I mean, are we truly seeing the world's best ever pacer in Test? Because you've played against some incredible players. You've commentated on some incredible pacers. Where does he stand in terms of the McGraths, the Walsh, the Ambrose, the Dale Steins, the Jimmy Andersons? Because obviously, so many of them had longevity. But in terms of Bumrah, he's just a game changer, isn't he?
Well, he is. My personal number 1 of all time in my career, in my time, was Malcolm Marshall, who, with some stiff competition in the West Indies alone in that era, where West Indies power was well beating. I always felt that Malcolm was just that tiny bit more special than the likes of Andy Roberts, Michael Holding, Joel Garner. I mean, they're all brilliant and fast and nasty, and it was an era of a lot of fast bowling. We don't have quite the same numbers of 90 plus fast bowlers or 95 plus fast bowlers at the moment. You can ask the question why, but it's hard to tell. And if I was going to make the judgment, I'd probably wait another couple of years. But Jasprit, over the last, whatever it is, 3-4 years, a rough game, Jasprit has been absolutely brilliant. And you watch him wherever, in India, at Lords, Headingley. You watch him, you watch what he does with the ball. You watch him find a way through Harry Brook, for instance, which is always a big wicket for any team to take against his current England team. Joe Root, he troubles them all. Rarely do you see Jasprit sort of, as it were, on the sidelines or looking ordinary. And his figures, of course, are unbelievable. So on figures alone, at this stage of his career, he's up there. Number 1, number 2, he's top 3 of all the people I've seen up there. And of course, with an action that is impossible to replicate. I mean, there's just something, in a very good way, when I use the word freakish, about the way he bowls. It is, I've never seen anything like it ever. And heaven forfend that anyone tries to teach their young child, age 7, to bowl like Jasprit Bumrah, because you'll probably break him. It's an extraordinary thing to see. And I think you just have to accept that there are accepted ways of delivering a cricket ball, which are probably less stressful on the body. That Jasprit is a one-off, and to be treated as a one-off. And when he finishes his career, because that's always the thing at the end of it all, isn't it? I mean, some people have great longevity, the likes of Courtney Walsh went on forever and ever. Ambrose, all these people, you judge them at the end of their career, but at the moment, Jasprit, let's just say this, is right up there.
Yeah, I like the way you described it, the fact that it is incredibly hard to kind of tell a 7-year-old boy to emulate that action, but he's just been so good from an Indian POV, and hope it continues. Finally, on this whole Indian Test team, because obviously the team has transitioned from the likes of Rohit and Ashwin, and more importantly, Virat Kohli. And by no means do I say the other 2 names lightly. I just say Virat's name higher because he was a brand ambassador of Test cricket. That's been well documented. A lot of experts resonate with that. Do you think Test cricket does miss a character like Virat Kohli, especially given that how he was flying the flag high for a country like India, where everyone's kind of taken into the IPL and the dizzy heights of making money there? But Test cricket is important, and Virat Kohli kind of was pivotal in that, in terms of being a beacon of light. So do you think in many ways you miss him and the world misses him in this format?
Well, I mean, it's obviously very recent, isn't it? And I mean, I first of all, I love the fact that Virat has been so passionate about his endorsement of Test match cricket. It means so much to all of us, especially who were brought up with Test cricket as being solely and indubitably the best form of the game. So with the competition, the severe competition from the white ball game around the world, if someone of Virat's status publicly states how important Test cricket is, that's a brilliant piece of PR. I mean, that's free PR for the game of Test cricket and absolutely invaluable. And the one thing I would ask, to be honest, is that players from every country, all the big nations, but all the Test playing nations, try and say the same thing, because of course you'll have a lot of these top players from across the world involved in things like IPL and the other franchise leagues. IPL still, of course, very much the biggest and best of them all. So that gives profile to these players. And Virat's words are so important. The game will speak for itself. This series that we're watching, has spoken for itself. And I'm sure there are a lot of people across the world who have been gripped by it, because it's been brilliant cricket and exciting cricket. And, we've had the tension of not knowing which way the games might go. And that's the best advert for Test cricket. But the trouble is, of course, that however much we say that, each and every time I'm at a Test match, whether I'm commentating or just spectating, and you have one of those great sort of 5-day games where it goes down to the wire, each and every time we all say, oh, isn't that the perfect advert for Test cricket? Well, it is, but only if people are watching it. And I know it's sometimes confusing. You don't necessarily have people in grounds, but you have a lot of following around the world. And a lot of people, key people, will be watching. I just think it's so vitally important that people like Virat talk it up as best they can, as often as they can. No one's going to stop franchise cricket. No one's going to stop white ball cricket. It's on an inexorable rise, which we have to accept. And we know that, for instance, the last couple of years, we've gone about, conversations have changed from finding windows for white ball cricket to finding windows for Test cricket. As long as we understand, as long as the great world, the greater world understands that Test cricket is vital and also entertaining and gripping and fun to watch and interesting to watch. Admittedly, it does need time. As long as we keep that and find a balance, because if we lose that balance, it would be an absolute tragedy. So we keep the balance, keep Test cricket, allow white ball cricket to flourish as it does and to entertain as it does. But it would be the equivalent. I mean, as many people know, I am a great wildlife enthusiast, and that's wildlife as in animals in the wild, not things late at night. And it would be the equivalent of killing off an endangered species, never to be seen again. And if I use, as we're talking about India, I have been involved passionately with campaigns to do with wildlife in India, with the tiger, the emblematic animal of India. And we look at the populations of tiger. We look at Project Tiger, which has helped the numbers come up again. Because, of course, the Indian tiger was a threatened species. And if you are responsible for killing off something as beautiful as an Indian tiger, letting it go into extinction, you have a lot of weight on your shoulders, a lot of blame to account for. And I see it very much the same with Test cricket. There are two great things here. Great animals, great Test cricket are on a par in many, many ways. And if you let them die off, you are a very, very guilty man indeed.
I like the way you say that. And this is not in my notes, but I just have a question on the back of what you said, because it made me think, watching the West Indies Australia series, which had a pink ball test, and day-night Test cricket was a vision that the ICC had. It came to fruition in 2015. It's been 10 years since. Lots been made of the pink ball. A lot of boards are either playing a pink ball test or not. We see it down under predominantly, with Australia really taking it under their wing. Do you think that's enhanced the game? And on what you said about Test cricket, another compatriot of yours, Michael Vaughan, said he wanted a 2-tier system for tests, right? Where do you stand in just giving Test cricket a facelift? Because it's almost like applying over a pig.
Well, I don't like day-night Test cricket. It's as simple as that. There are lots of reasons for that, which I won't necessarily go into. I don't see the necessary. I mean, what are the reasons for day-night Test cricket? Sometimes it's TV induced. You get people, people who can't be in the respective city can sit at home after work watching Test cricket through the evening. Great. I think it ruins the atmosphere and ruins the. Personally, I think it ruins the atmosphere. And I think it ruins the sort of the core of Test cricket, which is a daytime game played with a red ball in good conditions, all being hopefully in good conditions. We played the one experiment with the day-night Test match, and it was a complete disaster. Nothing against Birmingham as a city or as a ground, but the weather was not good. People were freezing to death in the stands at 9 o'clock in the evening. It ruined the entire rhythm of the day. It was a complete disaster. Australia almost gets away with it. But this Brisbane Test coming up in the winter, in our winter, their summer, I think is completely unnecessary. Play it in the daytime. Pink balls confuse the issue. You have this sort of slightly weird thing where, as the lights take effect, it's best to be bowling when the lights take effect. What's the point of that? It's a tact. Okay, it might add a little bit of something. A one-off tactic for a captain. Should we declare now? Get on. It's all wrong. There's a lot of good reasons for playing white ball cricket of a night. That's fine. As you might have gathered, I'm not really a great fan of day-night Test cricket. As for a two-tier system, I'd rather not. But if it helps, we in effect already have a bit of a two-tier system, not by that name and not delineated. But it would be a shame. It would be a shame in my book to have a two-tier system. But if it somehow helps the game survive, Michael Vaughan comes up with lots of very interesting ideas. He's a great thinker about the game. There's always a danger with the two-tier system that some of the wrong sides, your own side, might end up in the second tier. Good luck. There's a lot to work out. But the most important thing, going back to a previous topic or previous question, the most important thing is to keep the flag flying for Test match cricket. Yes, there are mismatches. Of course, there are mismatches. And one of the things that affects all this, of course, is funding. You mentioned the West Indies. Well, one of their big problems is they lose money playing Test matches. They can't afford to pay their best players all the time to be around for Test matches or encourage them to play Test matches.
Yeah.
These are issues which go beyond the basis of Test cricket. The finance of the game is, I won't say it's in a mess, because obviously there's a lot of money swilling around the game, only in certain areas. But some of those countries that are short of money, could do with some way, some mechanism of being supported.
Yeah, it's a big call for the cricket higher ups to take, and I think I completely agree with you. Romantics of the game who like the longest format want to see it exist, even in this slam bang era of cricket for sure. Last minute that we can spare with you in terms of all the things that you've given us. I'm just going to ask you your predictions for the series. This one, India versus England. You have to tell me a winner, the highest run getter, and the wicket taker. That's a fair enough assessment, right? Okay, so David Gower, you're on spot here. Who's going to win the series?
Right, England will win this series.
Okay.
It will be, I'll put a figure on it. It's meaningless. I'm going to say it's going to be 3-2.
Okay.
So I'm expecting results both at Old Trafford and the Oval. Well, highest run getter could still be Shubman Gill, because obviously got off to a flying start. A lot of runs in the bank already, and someone had to play exceptionally well to overtake that. And I expect Shubman to get more runs in these final two Test matches as well.
And leading wicket taker, finally.
Leading wicket taker. Just a good question. I've not looked at the stats. Who is the leading wicket taker at the moment, I wonder? Because if Shastri sticks to his word and only plays 3 out of the 5 Test matches, that makes it harder for him. And it's pretty even. There's no one sort of really far ahead as far as I can think at the moment. Who could it be? Who could it be? It might even be Stokes. How about that? Could be Stokes, because Ben will give it his all. He has already picked up some wickets. As long as he doesn't fall apart, as long as his limbs don't fall off in the process. So for what little it's worth, I'm going to give you Ben Stokes.
Okay, super. Thank you so much for your time. That was just a little bit of fun and games, but hopefully everything's good in Hampshire and you're enjoying the Merlot because it's that season.
Well, it doesn't have to be Merlot, but no, all is well. Pleasure to speak again. And let's look forward to a couple of great
moved on from the Merlot You moved on to the Merlot to the Pinot Noir, I'm guessing.
Avanish, I have always been eclectic with. There are many, many grapes out there. Now you mention it, and I never tie myself to one grape. Never have done, never will.
I'm presuming whatever grape it is, it'll be a full-bodied one, just like this podcast. Thank you so much for your time, David Gower. It's been an absolute pleasure to get this exclusive chat with you. And we'll see if England win this series, or will it be India's new test team with Shubman Gill leading the line. Thanks. Subscribe to cricket.com, and we'll catch David soon.